All right, welcome back to the Retro Cult. I am your host, Chuck. This is your host, Mac. Mac, what's been going on, man?
Not much, just a lot of work getting ready for the upcoming Recollect show in a couple of
Yep.
weeks. I've been going through the collection. I've already started my big box of stuff that I need to. I definitely have some toys in there that I'm looking forward to putting out for sale, and I'm working on building some comics, a couple of comic boxes at least to take too. So I'm getting excited. We've got about 2 weeks, I think, for that. Before that, so I'll be
Yeah.
working more this week in the evenings, and definitely next weekend and the next week to get ready for that. But other than that, not a lot going on this week. Of course, it was Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there,
Absolutely.
and but other than that, yeah, nothing really going on this weekend. Just trying to get things organized, get the collection. That's an ongoing struggle with me, is getting my collection organized. Just before the show, I was telling you about all the comics I wanted to talk about in this episode that I could not lay my hands on. So I've really got to get my collection organized.
I mean, it's pretty massive, man. So I mean, it would take a long time, I think, for you to get all of that um as organized as you like to have things. That's a lot of work because usually I know in your book room you can lay a hand on a book pretty quickly, but your
Yeah,
comic
I
books are
do.
just
My
so
books are
huge.
in much better or they're much more organized than my comic collection is right now. It's just the comic collection has just kind of gotten out of hand. Over the past, I'd say over the past 15 years, I just accumulated so many books that they get bagged and boarded, but I wouldn't say they get organized. And that's what I'm working on now, is getting them actually organized. I think I have short boxes. I prefer short boxes to long boxes just because I'm not a young man anymore. And those long boxes, standard long box can hold about 300 comics on average. Um, that's a lot of comics, and comics are heavy. So I prefer short boxes these days. So, but I actually need to just bring down short boxes of books that are already bagged and boarded. They're ready to go. They're just out of order. Not in any kind of order. So I was thinking I might start bringing those down to the den every, a couple of boxes every night. Just watch TV and sort comics.
That's definitely a long, long process, though. I mean, I know that's
Oh
going to
yeah,
take you a while to
yeah.
get through all that, and if
Well,
you're like me, man, the motivation after work sometimes is pretty low.
I'm right there with you, brother. I mean, I am not. I'm not the biggest go getter once I get home from work.
No,
Um, and especially if you go to bed early like we do sometimes. I mean, I'm usually in bed by 10:30 at the latest. Some nights maybe a little later than that depending on what's going on, but most nights by 10:30 I'm out. I'm ready to call it a day. Um, but I will say, a few years ago, um, I don't know if you remember this. I actually was going to pay Grant, your youngest son, to go to because I had my collection in a storage unit at the
yep.
time in Kernersville, and I took him over there with me one Saturday, and we were going to sort comics all day long, and we got nothing accomplished because as we would get into things, he would say, "Oh, this looks cool," and then I would waste 30 minutes explaining the whole thing.
I'm
So
sure that's easy to do.
that's the
Hey,
problem with that, is if I need help from people who have zero interest in comics at all.
well, I think if the girls ever go off to do something, I feel like you and I could probably sit there
Yeah,
and knock some stuff out. I mean, we don't have to talk about the things all day long. I can
I
if I
will
know if
though.
I yeah, but if I have a job, if I know that I've got a job of sorting things, I can, put those questions in a Rolodex and bring that up
Yeah,
later
yeah,
and knock out, you have like a thing, hey, let's get 4 boxes done, and then it's break time, and then I'm probably going to get off task after that. But it would
yeah,
be a lot of
yeah.
fun, man. I mean,
Well,
just to
no,
go through that and
yeah,
get it
we
organized.
definitely will have to maybe we'll have to film that for the channel that day. Yeah, well, on sometime when uh, when Laura and Cassandra go somewhere with their mom, or if they just go somewhere, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to have a comic sorting party here, and maybe we'll film that. I think that'd be some interesting content.
I think it would be, because you just never know. I have yet to open the box downstairs that has all the video games in it that I'm thinking about bringing to the show, and I'm very tempted to film that because I'm gonna be honest with you, other than what I've seen on the top, I have no idea what's in there.
Oh, you should definitely do that.
I
That
have
would be
no
great.
clue
I
what's
mean,
in there.
that's a basically uh, an opening a mystery box. That's a
Yeah,
lot. That could be a lot of fun. Yeah,
I
it's
think
like me. I've actually stacked up over probably about the last year. I've stacked up a few big bad toy store orders that I want to film, but it's like one of those things where I kind of want to do it all at one time. Like I think I have 4 or 5 boxes from them, and I know uh, not every most the stuff in there is all new, but it's all retro themed, and you probably know because I know that one thing in there. It's not a total mystery to me. Maybe that's why I'm hanging on to it for so long. I'm hoping I'll just forget what's in the boxes. Then it's like a surprise again. Uh, but I do know one thing in there is the Jaws 50th anniversary game where they remade the Ideal
yep.
game from, and so I had that game as a kid, loved it. Um, I'm looking forward to opening that. But I definitely want to do that and share that experience. I know that a lot of people have done reviews of it. I'm not necessarily going to do a review of the game itself, but I'm just going to kind of do an unbox. I like unboxing videos.
I think it'd be fun to watch, man. I mean, just to see what you've got, because I mean, I had fun watching your trip to Chester's, like one of your very first videos, your trip to
Yeah.
Chester's, and then like what you got later on. It was just fun to
Yeah.
see. I mean, it's those kind of things are intriguing.
Yeah, that's one of the you and I have discussed this. That's actually one of the issues I run into when we do go like out toy hunting or comic hunting or whatever it is, just antiquing and looking going to antique stores. Um, a lot of times I don't really film very much anymore. I just because the act of filming itself kind of distracts me from the and I feel like I should be paying attention. So I don't really know if I'll have a lot of videos anymore that are me at a toy show or at because I actually want to enjoy the show, and I feel like if I'm worried about filming all the time, I I'm not present for the show. I'm not paying attention, and I'm more concerned about shooting footage. So I think because you know, I know we've got to have the Winston Salem toy show coming soon. Like that's got to be
I
soon.
thought about that the other day, and I every time I think about it, I'm like, I'm going to look it up, like right now,
Yeah,
but then I'm not going to look it up right
then
now because
I
I'm in the
don't.
middle of something.
But I don't. I might film some like footage of us. Before we go in, I might take a little footage of just the overview. But I actually think most of the stuff that I do for shows and stuff now is probably just mainly going to be haul videos, like this is what I got
Yeah.
kind of
I
thing.
I probably should ask, Todd, like how do you do this?
Yeah, that's
Do you
great.
go in and walk around and then you go back and film? Because you've got to go enjoy the place. And
Yeah.
unless your main goal is to make content and you're not really worried about anything else. But I mean, some of the stuff that I find is so hidden that if I were worried about a camera shot, I would never find it.
Yeah,
I would never see
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
And so
That's my worry.
I'm happy to shop and then go back around and do like a quicker, walkthrough, because I think that would be easier to narrate. And then, at the end, like, hey, these are the things that I got from this great place.
Yep.
But I'm like you, I don't think that I can walk in anymore. Even when I had the GoPro, I mean, I was so worried. I would always check in my phone to make sure that the
Yep.
shot looked okay and that I wasn't like filming the brim of my hat or something. So,
That's
um,
that's exactly it. The best video I ever felt about in that kind of respect was Laura and I. This is one of the videos on the channel when Laura and I went to Cooper's Vintage Village in
Yep.
Kernersville, and w- I did a lot of filming in there, but that time I actually just filmed with my phone. I've bought all this equipment over the years, and I still find the easiest thing to manage is just my phone because I always have it with me.
Yep.
So I basically have a selfie stick that I use as basically to steady my shot, so I'm not holding the phone like this all the time. Uh, but the thing I did that time, and I might try if I do get show footage again. I'm just gonna have to do it this way, where I literally wasn't filming the whole time. I would literally we'd walk up to a booth, I'd take a look around. If there was something interesting in the booth, I'd start filming. Then
Yeah.
or if I found something interesting, then I would film. And so maybe that's what I just need to do at a show. The other part with the show, unlike at like we were there on a Friday afternoon at Cooper's Vintage Village, there weren't a lot of people there. When you go to a toy show or something or a Comic Con, clearly the other thing you got to worry about is there are just tons of people. Like when we went to the
Yeah.
Heroes Aren't Hard to Find Winter Con, that place was packed, and so it was kind of difficult to worry about filming and stuff and not running into people.
Yeah. It's gonna definitely take one of those just a dedicated time. Uh Even possibly if we go if I walked around and was the cameraman. I do at school. I have some pretty nice microphones. I know you have some nice
Yeah,
microphones
yeah, I
too
have
that
some
hook up to our
microphones.
phones.
Yeah,
Just slap that on and walk around. And like I feel like the good thing for Todd is he's talking the whole time. So I
yeah.
don't think he has to go home and do the editing. And I think that's where I
The
lost a lot of my
I will
stuff.
say that's what I've got to do is I've got to I'm much more now. I want to record it as I'm doing it.
Yep.
And I'll do then so it might be me talking about nothing, or just me babbling away to Laura or to you. Um but I would rather record it in the moment because I will say that is a difficult part. Having done like the Chester's video you mentioned, like I shot all that footage and then I dropped the audio out and I recorded a voiceover.
Yep.
Well, that took me hours
It
to
does, man, because
just
it's
to
hard to
record the
time
audio.
everything perfect.
Yeah. So it took me hours and just coming up with what you're going to say about it and
Yeah.
everything else. So yeah, for like a 30-minute video, it probably took me 2.5 hours just to do the voiceover and editing and stuff. So I would rather just talk about it. I'm trying to get the video because I know that I need to reduce the friction as much as possible until this
Yeah.
thing takes off and we maybe hire an editor or something. We're on deck. We're the ones doing it.
Yeah.
So I've got to keep the friction on the editing as minimal as possible, or I won't do it, or I just won't do it.
I understand, man. It's one of those things that makes it very tough. And honestly, I have so much footage on my phone right now that's just sitting there of
Oh
multiple
yeah,
places that I've been.
you still have really cool footage. Uh, we've talked about it. The footage of when you found all the Marks figures at
Well, that's
McKay's. Like,
that's definitely the next video
yeah, you've
because
got to
that
do that. You've
yeah,
got to
yeah,
do.
that one I knew in the moment. Like I actually like stopped myself and was like, "Hang, you should film this. Like you're gonna kick yourself if you don't film this."
Yep.
And so I pulled my phone out and videoed myself picking up each figure, trying to slow down and show it to the camera. Did a terrible job of that because I was yoinking those things left and right, man. But it was, I mean, that's easy. But I mean, like I have detailed footage of the insides of multiple antique places that I
Oh
should
yeah, you
probably get to work
definitely.
on. I'm gonna have to drop out the audio, and I got to try to remember where I was. Hopefully, I took some video of the outside. If not, I just need to start deleting those and
Well,
and
if
doing it
nothing
again.
else, the metadata on the video should at least tell you like what city you were in. So
Yeah,
that might
it'll let
jog
me
your
know.
memory. That maybe will jog your memory about
Something
the
would,
name of
yeah,
the store or whatever. But
yeah.
but no,
But
yeah, I like I said, I'm in the same position you are. I've got a lot of videos lined up, ready. That they aren't ready. Like they're ready to shoot. I just have to buckle down and get the job done. I don't know if that's going to happen in the next 2 weeks because I think it's more important to get ready for the Recollect show. But I would certainly say that as we roll into summertime, I'm definitely going to. I've got some videos that are on deck that I think I'm ready to roll with them. I just need to shoot them, and then, like I said, I'm
Yeah.
going to try to shoot them in such a way that they're either going to become 3-minute shorts or they're going to require minimal editing.
Yeah, once I get those longer forms out of the way, I'll debate on doing any more. But after that, I plan on doing mostly shorts as things move on.
Yeah.
But I wanted to touch on something you were talking about how like you've got things where you've forgotten about things and stuff like that. And you were sharing something with me right before the podcast that you had forgotten that you had even backed
Yeah,
before.
yeah, it was a Kickstarter campaign for a card game called Comic Book Boom. And for anybody watching the video version of this, I here's the box for the game. It's from Gadabout Games. I had backed this. I forget when, but I honestly had forgotten I'd even backed it, and it showed up in the mail this week, so I was very excited about that. Um, the point of the game is that it's it's not what you normally think. Normally, you'd think the game's about being a superhero or being in a comic book, but no. The point of the game is you're a comic book publisher in the 1990s, and it's for 2 to 4 players, and each one of you is essentially Marvel, DC, Image, whatever. They're not actually using licensed properties or the company names, but you're actually trying to increase your market share in the comic market, and the way you're doing it is by introducing more extreme. Yeah, you think of that 90s extreme, everything was extreme characters, or you're trying to use gimmicks. But the only thing is you can push it too far and cause the market to collapse, which it did in the
Yeah,
90s.
yeah,
That's the funny thing. So you're trying to do that and you're trying to be the number one publisher, but when the market collapses, I guess.
I hear
Um,
you.
so this is definitely going to be one I definitely want to. I love one of the things that intrigued me when I first heard about the game was that the way the game is designed, yeah, it has rules. It has a rule book you can read, but actually, it's designed in such a way that you can actually basically for a quick start you can actually just set, as long as you can read how to set the game up, you can actually go ahead and start playing without having read the full rules. You can actually kind of get the rules going as the game goes on. So I was intrigued by that because that is, I'll be honest, that's the biggest, when we've had game nights before, um sometimes the most time consuming part of the game is actually setting the game up.
Yeah, I have appreciated some of the people that I have purchased games for recently for my classroom, and their big push is to make the rules as simple as possible
Hmm.
so that
Hmm.
it's not so confusing because I think a lot of people give up on stuff when you've got a thick book of rules.
Hmm.
It's honestly it's I mean, unless that is games are just your thing and you're used to that, it's not a lot of fun to try to figure out a game and like, what in the world are we supposed to do now? It's not. I just want to know what to do and how to keep playing and get rolling. And I know that 5 minute dungeon game that I think you had and I have, it's just a card game.
Yeah.
It's set up fast. It was very easy to understand what to do, and we knocked the game out very quickly. And then I know there's been some other games that we've tried to set up, and it took forever to get the game set up.
Yeah, well, I wanted, a few years ago they re-released Hero Quest,
Yep.
which um, I had played that back in the day, and it's a complicated game. It is a very complicated game, and I did buy um, when they re-released it when it was updated, But it's a beautiful game. I bought that with the intention that I was going to invite you guys over, get Logan over, and we were going to all play a game of Hero Quest, but looking through it, I had just forgotten how complex the game is. Like it's kind of like actually playing. It's not a role playing game per se, like Dungeons and Dragons, but it has elements of that. But it's definitely a dungeon crawler game, and it just I was like, oh, you don't, this isn't something you throw up and you play for a couple hours and you're done. I mean, some of these games can go on for like 5, 6 hours. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, is that likely to happen? Probably not.
There's a good YouTube channel out there that I will throw on every now and then. And I, again, like this is coming off the top of my head, so I have no idea. But like if I don't understand the rules, I throw his channel on. And if he
What's the
hasn't,
channel? Do you,
I
oh,
have
you
no
can't
idea.
remember
I
the name.
no clue.
You have to
But
text it to me. I'll
I
try to
will send it
include
to
it
you.
in the description.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. But they'll let you know how to play the game. And so if they can't explain it pretty easily in the first little bit, I'm like, forget it. I'm not even going to worry about it because it's not worth it. If the game's overcomplicated, I'm just not going to sit down and play. And we've sent a bunch of games back, and we've bought some games that are much easier to play for camping trips. Um, that are more fun to just to sit down and play really quickly and be done with it. I think the Minecraft game that we kept is probably the most complicated of all of them, and it's not too bad.
Yeah. I I'm looking forward to playing Comic Book Boom. And part of it, just the other thing that attracted this to me is, I was running a comic store during the '90s comic book boom,
Yeah,
and so it really made me nostalgic for that time period. Uh, all the publishers were doing crazy stuff to get sales going. You had you could argue you had your event things that were made to like the death of Superman is one that comes to mind, or
yeah,
the breaking of Batman. um yeah, they would do things like that, which certainly did increase sales. But the biggest thing that I think most of us who were collecting comics in the '90s remember were all the gimmicks, the gimmick covers. Death of Superman, that's a great example. That one, you could
the
argue
armband.
yeah, it had an armband, but it came in a black bag with a
Yeah,
bloody S on it.
yeah,
Um, you know, that now there were two, back then there weren't variant covers like there are today, but there were differences in the covers in it,
yeah,
because back when there was still a newsstand market, which I don't think really exists anymore, um, there was the direct market copy, which was the one in the bag with the armband. But then you also had the newsstand version, which was just the standard comic book, but it did have a different cover. Um, and at the store we could order both, so we had both. So people, because this was also the height of the comic speculator, where people were buying comics. Oh, I'm just going to stick these aside and they're going to pay my kids way through college. It's just crazy.
baseball cards were the worst in '90s too,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was like that was a wild time because everything
Oh
was
yeah.
going to be huge.
The night, yeah. And that's why even with Rocket Comics, I mean, you couldn't avoid it. I mean, and we wanted the sale. I mean, we weren't turning anybody away, but we were really trying to make the store directed at comic book fans of comic books, not the speculator. We weren't trying to,
Yeah,
um, but this stuff there were so many of these things going on at the time, and you just couldn't avoid it. I mean, it was just part of the business. The industry was kind of forced you in that direction, whether you wanted to go or not. And because we did, I have a newspaper clipping uh, of the store during the death of Superman. I'm going to. started, I'm going to scan it and post it up to the rocketcomics.com website. But we, this was an interesting conversation. I called one of the local funeral homes and asked if we could borrow a coffin for that day. And I was just sure they were going to say no, but the local funeral home, I believe it was Lyle's Funeral Home in Burlington, North Carolina. They were like, yeah, sure. I explained, what it was for. There's a big event coming up. And so they actually brought it by the night before we were going to open with the Death of Superman. And we had gotten a red piece of cloth and uh, sewn the Superman symbol on so it looked like his cape, and we draped that over the coffin. And then and we literally had this in the middle of the store during the whole day, and people were taking, people. If it had happened today, we'd definitely had people with selfies, but we still had people come back with their cameras to
Yeah.
take pictures with the coffin. But the big thing was we had one of our customers who had made like a movie accurate 1989 Batman suit. Like he had, they had the rubber cowl mask, but he had made the rest of the costume and it looked great. And so that afternoon, he showed up to the store and he actually came and placed flowers on the coffin and everything. And it was a blast. And the newspaper showed up, took pictures of it. I'm definitely going to be posting that. But anyway, so we're none of us are guiltless of falling for the gimmick because that was a gimmick, but people loved it. It entertained the customers. That book sold like crazy. That was an amazing day. That was the first day uh, when the Death of Superman is the first time where I actually showed up to, because we opened at 10 a.m., but because of this, we were actually opening an hour early. So we were opening at 9, but I actually showed up at the store at like 7:30 in the morning to start getting things ready. And we already had a line of people outside the door
That's crazy.
waiting to get in. And we had to limit the number of copies because we had people, like, I didn't even think of that ahead of time, but when we first opened doors, we had people coming in grabbing the whole stack off the shelf. And I'm just like, you can't buy all those. We'll
Yeah.
sell you two.
That's crazy. And now they're worth not a lot.
They're worth like the Death of Superman number 75, Superman number 75. I think they sell at most around $20, more likely
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see them a lot.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
have, and I'll be honest, I have a lot of them.
yeah.
I have a lot of them just because I've, if I see them and they're the prices, I found them as low as $1. I found them in dollar boxes
That's what I'm
before.
saying. I've seen them in
Yeah,
dollar boxes
but I
before.
buy them. I still buy them. They're neat. They're a
Yeah.
neat artifact of that time. And I buy them just because I'm like, it's one of these days I'm going to be somewhere where there are a bunch of kids and I'm just going to hand them out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely I just remember everything in that time being super flashy.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah,
like foil and
yeah.
gold and silver and holograms and I mean you could go in at that time and not see what I would consider like a regular comic book. It just seemed like everything was like trying to outdo the other with all
Yeah,
of the fanciness.
I actually did. For viewers who are watching the podcast on YouTube, actually, I tried to find some more. There are a few gimmick covers I have that I couldn't lay my hands on because of the disorganization of my comic collection we were talking about earlier. But I did find these are some. I do love these. Punisher Warzone #1, which came out I think in '92. Yeah, yeah, in '92. It's a great comic. I mean, the Punisher was super popular back then, but the cool thing about this one is it's got a die cut cover.
Yep.
So you got this cool John Romita Jr. Punisher blazing away with the Uzis, and then there's a die cut in the cover,
Yep.
and it basically has another cover inside. So, see, I like this. I like this. This is, yeah, it's a gimmick, but I dig it. There was also a Wolverine number 50, I think, that so the cover, it had an outer cover that looked like a manila file folder that was from Project X, and it also was die cut with three tears across it, so it looked like
Yep.
Wolverine's claws had torn it. That was a great one. My favorite of probably all of the 90s gimmick covers, though, was, I don't remember the issue number, but there was an issue of Ghost Rider. Probably was issue 25. They always did it for like an anniversary issue or a key issue, but it was just a black cover with Ghost Rider's head, with the flaming skull on it, and if you exposed it to light, the skull glows in the dark with the
That's pretty
flames.
awesome.
And I remember we actually did it. We actually did one, and then we had a bathroom at the back of the store that did, was complete. Like, you close the door, it's a dark room,
Oh
and
yeah.
so we would go in there and close the door, and sure enough, that thing really glowed in the dark. I don't know how it would glow in the dark 30 years later,
I don't man, that glow
but
in the dark stuff seems to be pretty wild, man, because I have some like old Nickelodeon stickers that still just, I mean,
yeah. I would
brightly
hope that
glow.
I have, like I said, I know I have that issue. I need to dig it out and just see if it still works. Now, this one came out in the mid 90s. This is from like 95, 96, from the X-Men Age of Apocalypse crossover, which can't recommend that enough. That's an amazing story, where they literally stopped publishing the X-Men comics for the time duration of this, because it was an alternate universe created uh, in the story, and so they literally stopped publishing all the X-Men books for that time while this crossover occurred. And this foil cover,
Yeah,
like,
that's
these
yeah,
foils are amazing.
yeah.
These are amazing, and the art's great too. This was Joe Madureira. If I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize. Uh, he did the art. The book itself is amazing. I
I'm
love.
surprised that didn't come in a bag with a Fleer card too.
You know, y- I don't think any of these did, but there were plenty of comics that did come
Yeah.
with. Well, like, I do remember before, when, who did the first set of the Marvel Universe cards? Was that?
Ooh, I think it was Tops, but I'm not
No,
100%
no.
certain, man.
See, I don't think that was Tops. I believe it was another company. Um, Skybox. I think
Skybox.
Skybox. Yeah, I do remember that there were bagged Marvel comics right before the Marvel Universe cards came out. I don't know if it was every Marvel comic or only certain Marvel comics came in a bag with a card from that set. Now, I believe the cards that were in the bags were just a standard card. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think, like, it wasn't anything special. Like, it wasn't a card you couldn't get in the packs. That would have been neat if it had been a card. But I do remember those were really popular, and it
Yeah.
generated a lot of excitement for those cards. I remember when those cards first hit, those and the DC Universe sets,
Yeah.
we couldn't keep them. We just couldn't keep them.
No, those were a lot of fun. One wild comic that I saw when getting ready for the podcast that I don't remember, but I know that I would have been hooked because it had like the hypercolor T-shirt, um, whatever that's called. That technology in the cover, when you would put your hand on it, it would
Oh,
pick up the
oh,
heat from your hand. It was
oh,
Blood Strike number one. I wrote that down in my
oh,
notes.
yeah, from Valiant Comics.
Yeah, but
No,
it
no, no. Image. I'm thinking of Bloodshot,
oh
which
yeah,
is the Valiant comic.
I would not know what comic. I didn't even write that down. I just wrote down the fact that it had the hypercolor feature, and from what I read, no one cared.
Yeah, Bloodstrike. That was an Image comic, and specifically, it was a Rob Liefeld comic. Um, I don't remember that particular. I don't remember the body heat
Yeah,
cover. But yeah, Image was right at the forefront of doing these gimmick releases too. They had tons of them. I guess you could say the first, when I think about it, like the first kind of gimmick cover, you could call, I'll also call it a gimmick slash variant cover that I remember is in 1990 when DC first started publishing Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. The first issue they said came with 4 collectible covers, but it really wasn't. It was actually probably the worst example of how to do this, which it all it was the cover. It literally had an outer cover. It had 2 covers. The inner cover on all 4 was the same. It's just and it actually fits into the, because that comic ran in story arcs. So like the first 5 issues was one story, and the if you take all 5 of those covers, they kind of have a progression because it's like a tribal mask, and by the 5th one, it becomes Batman. So that's kind of cool. But first issue, these collectible covers literally was just an outer cover with with a bat symbol on it with the title of the book, and the only difference between any of them was the background cover. It was like orange or green or blue
Yeah.
or red. I forget what the specific covers are. And I remember even at the time, that was, oh wow, this is kind of lame. I was expecting like 4 collectible covers, and now we've come, and now of course now in today's comic world, that's everybody's throwing a million variant covers, but at least they're different covers. I'll give them that. It's not just a different color, but I'm kind of out of the whole variant cover thing. There are just too many to keep up
There
with.
are too many, but I mean, I know that a lot of the ones that I've seen recently, there's always one of the covers that I guess speaks to me more than the others.
No, and I'm right there with you. Like I said, there are, like Laura loves Scotty Young. Anything he does, especially when he draws, like for Marvel, he has done a lot of covers where it's the heroes like as kids,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah,
She loves all of those. We bought plenty of variant covers for that. Um, DC back in the 2010s did some interesting variant cover things where um, they would do a variant cover for every book they published that month, but they would all be of the same theme. Like the one I really enjoyed was one month, and I believe this was after Darwin Cook had passed away. Um, they did where there was a Darwin Cook variant cover for every DC book. And in those months, I would rather have the Darwin Cook one than the
yeah,
standard one. Although a lot of time cases I'd buy both, but I want the Darwin Cook one. And they've done that before. They've done that in other cases where they'll do a specific artist variant cover. The ones that I have kind of passed on, like I do remember sometimes when they would be releasing a movie, they would do a movie variant cover, but it's like they didn't put any effort into it. The one I remember is specifically, I believe it was for the first Aquaman movie. They did an Aquaman variant cover for a bunch of DC comics that month, but it wasn't like they tried to work Aquaman into the theme of the comic that he's on the cover. It's literally they just slapped a picture of Jason Momoa on the cover of Legion of Superheroes for some reason.
yeah,
And then it would have like a little logo in the lower corner that would say, have the Aquaman movie logo and the date it gets released. I'm like, okay, that's not as low effort as the Batman Legends of the Dark Knight variant covers, but that's still pretty low effort. I mean, it would be neat if you had gotten, rather than using like a photo cover or something, would be have Aquaman, even if he's not in the book, interacting with the main character or group that the book is about. But no,
yeah.
that's that. And to me, I'm like, that's what I would consider a cash grab kind of. I mean, you could argue all of these are cash grabs, but and I'm not against grabbing cash. I try to do it all anytime I can,
Yeah. I
but
mean, I get
but
it.
there are some that I'm like, that's low effort. That to me, that's like you could have done a little better than that.
I forget what I was complaining. Oh yeah, I was complaining so hard about some of the Funko Pop, um, like the chases, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
how terrible they are. And it's like I found Destro today at Five Below, and she decided she didn't want it, but like the chase is with a gold head. Who wants that? Like just make his head like very shiny, like silver, instead of
Yeah,
like
you make it the chrome plated, like the old
yeah, that's
C3PO
great.
figures or
Who
something.
wants
Yeah,
a gold? Like that's
yeah.
stupid. And like even the creature that I found for you, I'm gonna be mad if it's the chase, because I feel like the chase is like kind of chromish like that. Like that's not what the creature looks like at all.
No,
Like
I
if
get that.
anything, that should have been black and white.
Right, the chase should be black and white.
It's
I
not.
like
This
I
is
do.
not hard.
There have been a lot of those that I have like it's not a chase, but Funko Pops, we've discussed this at length, is
Oh yeah.
Funko Pops are one of those things I have said for a million times, I'm not buying another one of these things. Like
Yep. And then we
people,
do.
but I always find another one I like. And
Yeah.
people call them soulless and all that. And I'm like, I don't know. I dig them. I mean, I'll be honest. Funko Pops, there are characters I have in Funko Pops that if it weren't for a Funko Pop, that figure wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
That character would never exist in a toy form at all. So I'm
Sorry for
thankful.
disappearing.
It's okay. I'm thankful that they exist. So, and I think they're cute. They're whatever. Do they make too many of them? Maybe I don't know. Like I said, I literally have two of my favorite television characters are Fred and Lamont Sanford. I love Sanford and Son. I grew up with that show. It's one of the funny. Red Fox was one of the most genius comedians of all time. I have a Fred and Lamont Sanford figure. Without Funko Pops, I would not.
Yeah.
I just
I do
would
know
not.
somebody today. I did not know you like them so much. I'll have to see if I still have that saved, but they came up with like what would happen if NECA made Sanford and Son, and it's Lamont and Esther is in the three pack with
I'll be
which is
honest. If
great.
they made if NECA or Super Seven
Yep.
were to make Sanford and Son figures, I would buy. I I might bitch about it about the price, but
Yeah.
yeah, a NECA Ultimate um, or Super Seven's the one that does the Ultimates figures.
Yeah.
But if they were to do like an Ultimates, Fred Sanford and Lamont and yeah, Ann Esther, Grady, Bubba, all of them, I'd probably buy them all. That show is just such an integral part of my childhood. I'll be honest, a lot of those old '70s sitcoms I would love, and not even beyond that. We live in North Carolina. I grew up watching Andy Griffith. I still love the Andy Griffith show. I'd love to see somebody do an Andy and Barney figure.
It'd be cool.
That'd be
Yeah.
cool. And so it doesn't all have to be superheroes. But I will say that being said, most of them are superheroes. But uh, but it's, talking about the chase, like a few months ago, this was, I think I had literally just, we had gone out to dinner. I think I had just said, I'm done with Pops. That somehow they've taken over my house and all of this
Yeah.
and everything. And literally we walked into GameStop and they had the Cylon
Yep.
Pop where he's standing on the human skull, where the Cylon has his foot on a human skull.
Yeah.
Of course I bought that. Now, that's one I would also love to see a chase. I would want it to be a couple of versions. They could do, like you said, a chrome. I forget what that process is called, where you make
I don't know what
plastic
that
look
is,
like
but
metal. It
yeah.
actually has a name. Um, I would love a Centurion that's shiny chrome like that, but that's another one. They could do a gold one, and it would
They
make
could do a gold in
sense
that.
in the context of the show
Yes.
because the Cylon commanders were gold. So that would be cool.
If
So
yeah, when it makes sense, it would
when it
definitely
makes
be cool.
sense, you can tell like
Yeah.
with the creature example you just gave, yeah, you're like they didn't put a lot of thought into it, or they just couldn't think of anything. Because you're right, any of those Universal monster sodas that they do, the obvious chase would be a black and white version.
They should always, even in the, I mean, since they don't do the sodas anymore, the box figures should be black and white. There should be
Yeah, yeah.
an alternate version of
And
them.
right, and then there are some now they have done that because I actually have the Adventures of Superman figure from George Reeves from the
Yeah,
50s. I have a black and white version of that figure, and I know they did a color. There is a color version, but there's also black. And I bought, and of course, kind of like you, I would prefer the black and white to the color.
yeah, yeah. It just depends on which one you're getting.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I know I'm with you, man. I keep saying I'm not buying any more of that, and then there's always something that catches my
Oh
eye that
yeah, yeah,
they
right.
come out with.
Yeah.
But I really am. I mean, now that they don't make the sodas anymore, I'm trying. But if they
Well,
come out with
and
some,
then
if Monster Squad comes out next week, I'm buying it.
oh, of course, anything
I
like
mean,
that. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. They started doing the video ones that are in the old Blockbuster clamshells.
yeah,
I haven't seen any new ones of those in a while, so I don't know
nah,
whether they're still doing those or not. But see, that would be a great Monster Squad one. Would be to do those because then you could do the you could do the video case,
yeah.
but then have different figures in each one so that you could get the entire Monster Squad. That'd be
There's a
cool.
bunch. There's a bunch
Yeah.
of figures, and that's one. I'm actually kind of surprised that somebody out there, Super Seven or something, hasn't grabbed a hold of that because I mean, think about. I mean, you've got all the monsters, you've got the kids. That you would have to at least make that, and that's a
Hmm.
lot of characters. I mean, Super Seven would make a fortune off of that alone.
Well, yeah. I mean, to their from their perspective, I don't know. We love it. There is a community of people out there who loves it.
Oh yeah,
I just don't know how big that community is.
yeah,
Whether
but they made
yeah.
like the
Oh,
lead singer of, I mean, of some
that is
random
true.
band.
That is
So I
true.
mean, or the tar
Some of those
monster.
rock figures,
Yeah,
the music figures that Super Seven does. I mean, maybe I'm an out of touch old man. I accept that, but a lot of those, I'm like, I have no clue what this band even is.
yeah. So I mean, if they can get a figure, and it could be a licensing thing, it could
Yeah,
be,
probably.
who
Yeah.
knows what all that is, but I think it would be a lot of fun to collect that. And I know there have been some people that have, customized their sets and they've made them. Those, honestly, those sets are very nice. But it would be, I think that would be fun to collect. I know Cassandra would be all about it. She would want to, be out there finding all of those and collect them. So it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was actually just doing a quick Google search. Actually, it looks like those might already exist.
What's that?
No, these are customs.
Oh, yeah, those
There
custom
are
ones
some
are awesome.
custom, yeah, and they're awesome. And you're like, okay, the molds exist. Somebody's done it. Buy
Yeah,
that, and start cranking those out.
it would be awesome if they did.
Yeah, especially
But
right around Halloween time. That'd be amazing.
yeah,
I know that there are two guys that would give them their money. So
yeah, we would definitely get the money from us because that would be pretty awesome. But you never
yeah,
know. I mean, that could be something like way down the road because there's a lot of really good movies that don't have action figures.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's that. I mean, for as much as I hear people in the toy community like bagging on Funko Pops, okay. I mean, everyone's welcome to their opinion. If you don't like them, don't buy them. I mean, uh, you know, but I like you said, I think that there are tons of properties that that there are fans of out there that would like to have a physical representation of that character. Not, yeah, they're not articulated. To be honest, they're not targeted at people who are into highly articulated, highly detailed figure. They're
No.
aimed at, let's face it, the normie. And I hate that term, but I'll use it in this case. They're aimed at normies who like particular TV shows or movies or whatever, and think this would look cool on their desk. Let's face
Yep.
it, and that's who their target market is. And I love that. There are plenty of things. Like I said, there are plenty of things that I have in Funko Pop that if there was no Funko Pop for it, there just would not be that character would never be represented physically.
I get it, man.
Yeah.
That's for certain. Um, I was just glancing down at my notes. I think I think it would be a shame if we didn't at least mention, for Cassandra's sake, the lenticular covers that came out in the 90s.
Yeah, yeah, lenticular.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
just
a permanent family joke now.
it is. But let's throw it out. But I mean, those are kind of neat, though. I mean, I didn't collect those comics, but those are probably some of my favorite all-time baseball cards. The Sport Flicks. They're
Yep.
not worth a lot, but just that to be able to see like Wade Boggs swinging the bat just by moving the card around as like a young kid was awesome. And so I know those aren't highly valuable cards, but I do like Sport Flicks, and I think lenticular things are pretty amazing. I mean, I know that I guess right around that time, the insides of the Secret Wars, all those shields were lenticular.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and I'll be honest, the lenticular comic book cover was actually just happened. DC just about 5 or 6 years ago. They had a event called Future's End. It was kind of at the end of it was at the end of their many reboots. I don't remember if it was the end of the New 52 or Rebirth or one of those. Anyway, um, but anyway, they for every comic they published during this event, there was a lenticular cover version, and I have quite a few. I didn't
that's
buy
cool.
every DC one, but they were neat. They were neat. I would say, I guess because of probably the expense and lenticular, the way the covers were designed, it was really just a standard cover with a lenticular, like giant card, a
Yeah,
lenticular card in the middle of the cover with the actual lenticular image. And there were versions that don't have the lenticular. Like I guess it's kind of still the direct market newsstand kind of equivalency there,
yeah,
where there are versions that don't have the lenticular cover and they're slightly cheaper. But then there is the lenticular cover one, and I have a feeling the reason they did that is the lenticular technology that they use for making that image is kind of rigid. And so I can see why you couldn't do an entire cover of the comic necessarily as lenticular, because opening it up would probably destroy it, or if it got bent in any
yeah,
way. So that's probably why they did it that way. It doesn't, I'll be honest, it wasn't the most impressive thing. It was neat when you looked at the lenticular thing, but um, it was probably handled in the best way they could and still keep it affordable and not have the comic destroyed.
yeah, yeah. Trying to see if I had anything else on my notes down here for today that I haven't asked about or talked about.
But I mean, yeah,
Um,
just talking about all of this. So a lot of this stuff is still going on now, but the 90s there was just like a sweet spot there in the 90s for that, almost that entire decade, where there were a lot of creative gimmicks, I will say, because like I said, not to bag on variant covers too much, but I just think there's a lot more creativity that went into some of those gimmicks. Yeah, they're gimmicks. I mean, they're trying to boost sales of a comic book. Yeah. So, uh, the thing we got to remember is the '90s wasn't when this stuff was invented. They've been doing gimmicks with comics since comics first came out. Like
Yeah.
back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, there were all kinds of giveaways, everything. It's a publishing game, and they're trying to get more. It's like it's like all the fashion magazines back in the day that also included samples of stuff in it. Anything to get people to, or like the computer magazines I used to buy in the '90s, '80s, and '90s that always came with a disc or a
Oh
floppy
yeah.
disk or something with demo games. I miss that. That was
Absolutely.
a lot of fun. But anyway, it was. But I did think the gimmicks in the '90s were particularly creative. Were they used to paper over bad writing, bad art? Sure. Yeah. There's plenty of examples of that. There's a Fantastic Four um, comic. It was like an anniversary issue of the Fantastic Four, and it has like a die cut cover with the Fantastic Four, and there's just a big hole in the middle of the cover with the four, and when you open it, there's like another cover. uh, it was gimmick. I seem to remember that one not particularly working well. That was at a time when Fantastic Four really wasn't one of their better books. Um, and I'll be honest, the book inside is dog crap. I mean, it was terrible, but they tried. They tried. I
Yeah.
mean, there were cases where I'm like, you know what? Instead of throwing a gimmick cover on this book, what would really probably boost sales is putting a really good writer artist team on this book.
Yeah.
Because when you had John Byrne doing the Fantastic Four in the '80s and Walter Simonson, and those books sold great. They sold
Yeah.
great.
Quick question about the Fantastic Four. I was reading something today, and it was basically giving some facts about the Thing, Ben Grimm, and it said one of the things that the Thing does is he throws poker tournaments for other Marvel heroes, and it's not really if anything about the money. It's just so that they can get together and vent and have a night where they're not worried about superhero stuff. And I was like, I've never heard that before. And I was like, is there a comic out there that just has them playing poker
Yeah,
online?
there's actually, and I think this is a fairly recent thing. I
Okay.
like there's one particular story where and this might be where this is coming from. There's one particular story in an issue, I believe it's an issue of Spider-Man, where Spider-Man goes to one of these poker nights with the Thing, Mr. Fantastic's there, like several other Doctor Strange, I think, is there, and the Kingpin shows up. He's gotten word of this, and he shows up just wanting to get into the game, not to fight him, not to do anything, and basically Kingpin makes some kind of deal. If they'll let him play, it's like if he loses, he'll donate some massive amount of money to their favorite charity or whatever.
Yeah.
But if he wins, I forget what he was claiming. It wasn't like you'll tell me your secret identity or anything ridiculous like that. But there was something he was going to get. It was just like the pride that he beat
Oh yeah.
these superheroes, or especially Reed Richards, who's considered the smartest man in the Marvel universe, that kind of thing. But in the story, he actually, all the heroes eventually lose out except Spider-Man's the last one playing, and Kingpin starts talking trash to Spider-Man to get him to throw off. Yeah, he starts saying things like he's obviously figured out certain things about Spider-Man, that he's just a kid and all this stuff. But Spider-Man never loses his cool, never, and ends up winning, and like taking all of Wilson Fisk's money, and the Kingpin takes it in gracefully, I will say. Um, but he can't, he still, it's still shocking that Spider-Man basically outbluffed Kingpin and everything. And and so it's basically, I think it ends with Spider-Man webbing his way away, basically leaving the name of the charity that he wants Kingpin to donate the money to or something.
Yeah, I'm
It's
gonna
an
have to
interest.
find that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm familiar with the overarch of that story. I don't remember the particular issue, and it's not that old. I want to say it's
Yeah.
within the last 10 years.
I'll have to find that. I haven't read that the roast of the Fantastic Four that I found the other night either. I think I
Oh
sent you
yeah,
a I think I sent you a picture of
yeah,
that.
you did.
I was like, that just looked hilarious. I was like, I have no idea what this is, but I'm picking this up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There
It
are
just
things like
looked
that
like
you just cannot. You just can't pass up. Like there are tons of weird comics and stuff that it's just so bizarre. I'm like, I gotta buy this.
yeah, like what in the world is going on? And at
Mhm.
first I thought it was one of those those comic book companies that are like making fun of, or just kind of poking at other comic books and stuff, but it's not a Marvel. And then I looked at it, I'm like, oh no, this is actually Marvel. And
Marvel has always. I don't know if it's as much today. I haven't seen things like this as much, but Marvel historically was pretty good at poking fun at themselves.
that's
Like
funny.
a lot, I like to I know you know this, but I love collecting Marvel Age, which was a little comic book fanzine thing that Marvel published. It wasn't a
Yeah.
fanzine, they actually published it. Um Throughout the 80s and 90s, that they it wasn't free, it wasn't a giveaway, it literally cost like, but it was cheaper than a standard comic. It was like 25 cents, 50 cents, but it was like a little magazine about Marvel, and in that they are routinely skewering like the editor in chief, whoever that is at the time. And even though, the editor in chief is in on it because
Yeah.
his name's on the thing. But, you'd have, there are some of my favorite issues. You have issues of, John Byrne, who's a notoriously, I love his art. I will collect anything by him. But he's notoriously a prickly guy to work with. He can be, yeah, a lot of these guys are that way, but he can be a little prickly. And notoriously, the rumor was back in the 80s, early 90s, while Jim Shooter was the editor in chief there, their relationship was not smooth. You basically got two big egos with strong, hard headed guys that want their way. And uh, but there are routinely things in these Marvel Ages where you'll have a piece of art or something where that John Byrne drew making fun of Jim Shooter or something, and they would publish it. Jim Shooter would publish it. Hey, it's funny, and
Yeah.
so I historically Marvel did a pretty good job of making fun of themselves, and they used to routinely do. I think it was an annual event for a while. They would have what was called Assistant Editors Month, where every book in the Marvel universe would have an Assistant Editors Month seal on the cover, and they would warn you, oh, this it's assistant editors month. So it was implying that there were going to be things wrong with the comic book. Like a lot of times you would see like in the corner box, the character instead of in their normal position would be facing the wrong way or something. There'd be things just wrong. There usually the cover would have something really wacky on it or whatever, even though the comic inside was just the standard comic for that month. But that was always a lot of fun, that kind of stuff.
See, that's the kind of gimmick I can get behind.
No, I love that. Yeah, they did that. I know for at least 2 or 3 years they did an assistant editors month
That's awesome.
for every comic.
Yeah, I have to check that out sometime when I get a chance. Well, I'm looking at the time, man, and we have exceeded a little bit, not much, but a little bit there. So I don't want to sit here and chat all night long because I know you have things to do to get ready for the week. I've got things to do, and we just need to wrap this conversation up. But it's been fun, man. I mean, it's took us to places that I wasn't expecting to go, but that's always the joy of having an idea of where we're going, and that's kind of like what it's like to hang out with us anyway. We start on one thing and end up somewhere
Oh yeah,
completely different.
that's the nature of being a comic book or a toy collector or a paperback collector or anything, you might start talking about one thing, but there are thousands of rabbit holes to go down.
They're all out there. Well, listen, man, have a great week. I hope everything goes great at work. Big week for me with the EOG on Friday.
Yeah,
So
good luck with that, and
yeah, I
try
appreciate
to
it. Got to get these kiddos ready, man.
yeah, and yeah, try to keep them keep them calm.
That's all we could do, man. All right, Mac. Thank you so much. Thank you, listeners, for joining, and we will see you next time.